Welcome to One of the Trenches podcast. I'm Johnny Jones. This is Patches Kaplan. How you doing today, Patch?
Johnny, I'm doing good. I am getting awfully nervous for you in 2 days. I know what you're repping right now. I'm not going to acknowledge it because it's just going to make the next podcast that much harder.
Yeah, I know. This was my Christmas gift to my sister, who was a freshman at Penn State, and I was like, got to don it. She was like, "You got to wear it for the next episode because Penn State looked good." But we'll get into that later. How you
Yeah,
doing?
no, it's been an interesting playoff, Johnny, and interesting. Some people are complaining about it. I know Dave Portnoy said that it's one of the worst playoffs he's ever seen because all these teams stink and they're duds, and I couldn't disagree more with
Oh,
that. I think
100%.
that this is amazing for so many different reasons. And truly, I believe the four best teams are in the Final Four right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think we had a conversation about it a couple of weeks ago, but not on the pod, just kind of off the pod. But we were talking. The biggest thing about this 12-team playoff is the past couple of years, a lot of people were angry that teams that were left out, like 5, 6, 7, 8, tremendous football teams, all teams that they think that we all thought could win a national championship that didn't get the chance. And with the 12 team, with any kind of grouping of like whatever number you're going to pick, those last few are always going to be a little weaker and they always might get killed. But that's not why we expanded the playoff. It's not for 11, 12. It's for those 5, 6, 7, 8 teams like Penn State, teams like Ohio State, Notre Dame, teams that were built for the playoff but stumbled early in the season.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would like to do if you were to go back to see which teams do you think truly would have done really good in this type of playoff. Like 2 years ago, Penn State, who beat someone in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, they beat
Utah. Was it Utah?
Yeah. That was a great Penn State team. Yeah.
That was a great Penn State team. Last year's Ole Miss team would have been a really, really tough team to play in the playoffs. And you think about it, if you go even further back to the first playoff with Ezekiel Elliott in Ohio State, that's a perfect example of why this is important, because that was truly one of the most dominating teams I've seen in college football. And lo and behold, they won the Natty. And they weren't supposed to be in up until the conference championship against Wisconsin, I think it was.
Yeah, what about that Ohio State team a couple of years ago who then won the Rose Bowl with Jackson Smith and Jigba and all those guys? Like, that was a tremendously talented team. We've had, I don't know, just a bunch of SEC teams miss it. What about Georgia last year, losing to
Georgia last year? You can't forget about Georgia last year. They were remarkable for legit.
The entire season, they lose the SEC championship game to a good Bama team. They get left out. You just don't know what happens. Like, that's what I love about this playoff. And you texted me a couple weeks ago, but you like the national championship this year is going to go down as one of the best just because of what they went through and how they had to prove it every step of the way. And I totally agree with that. I think that's what's so exciting about this playoff. Like, I don't know, like last round was great. Notre Dame, Georgia came down to the end. Penn State, Boise closed for a little bit. Look at Arizona State, Texas. That came down to it. You know what I mean? Like
my favorite thing about it is the fact that we can now have a year where, like, let's say this is probably the best Big Ten year I've seen in a long time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So we now get the opportunity to see these teams, and it doesn't come down to a single game. And some of the old hats that are listening, always say, "Oh, then why play the games? Why do this? Why do that?" It's like, you should be able to redeem yourself. The story arc is going to be impressive for teams. But when you have teams as good as the Big Ten does right now with Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon before they lost, and then you even have some back end ones, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, end of the year, really, really strong.
Yeah.
It makes it so that we could possibly have a year where the Big Ten's top 5 are literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of power rankings. And they could all get in.
They would get screwed in the past just for being in that conference. And like a bunch of those great SEC seasons where they had 4 teams in the top 10, like 2 or 3 of those teams might miss the playoff, where it's like this year, everyone gets in. You're not going to get punished because you're in a conference with a good team, but you're almost going to get rewarded for it because you kind of get battle tested throughout the year. Look at Texas or Penn State. Those are teams that dropped in conference games, but they kind of got better because of that. Same with Ohio State losing to Oregon. It shows that they can play in big games in the regular season, and now they're kind of showing that right now.
Yeah, the only thing that I can say that bothers me a little bit about the playoff is it makes the other bowl games seem a little bit unimportant.
Yeah.
I still think it's great football. But it does seem like some of these lower games have a little bit more lackadaisical to them. They're just not as good. I thought Army played a great game. That was a fun one to watch. There's another one that was amazing that I'm slipping on.
Illinois.
The Illinois game. That was electric.
Shane Beamer like losing his mind. Like that was
I knew
crazy.
that one would be good. And I'm excited to see where those go. But I do absolutely love the 12-team playoff. I love how this turned out. Were there any teams in the playoff, Johnny, that you truly felt shouldn't have been there?
Wait, I want to go on one quick tangent while you're talking about bowl season. What do you think Oklahoma does? Because I know Navy had a great season. Navy was awesome, but Oklahoma can't lose to Navy. I don't care who's opting out of that game. Like, is Brent Venables, like, are we saying bye to him?
I don't know. It's a tough situation. Losing the game is one thing, right? Losing to a really talented AAC team is what it is. Where you have to be a little bit frustrated is how they lost.
Yeah.
Right? A 92-yard touchdown or 94-yard touchdown, whatever it may have been. Yeah. It was one of the longest in bowl history. You can't allow that. You cannot allow that to subpar teams. So I would be a little bit concerned about where the path of the program is going.
Yeah.
If I was the athletic director, I would be moving elsewhere. It's clear as day that the branch of Dabo Swinney is not panning out the way they thought it would. Granted, They made the playoff. They somewhat competed with Texas. Ultimately, I still think this was kind of a down year, a very lucky year for Clemson, but all his disciples, Brett Venables in particular, is just not having a good head coaching career. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some head coaches, some coaches just aren't built for head coaching jobs. They're better being around head coaches. And who they're able to surround themselves with. Dabo's really good at surrounding himself with good talent. And Brett has done well recruiting. He did well getting an offensive coordinator, but there's nothing that disappointed me more about Oklahoma this year. They underperformed. I thought they played absolutely terrible in their biggest games.
Yeah.
I would be very disappointed if I was Brett Venables. I don't know. It's kind of do or die for him next year, truly.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that's kind of keeping him in somewhat good graces is that Alabama win. He kind of pulled that out of nowhere, which was crazy thinking about that right now. But at the same time, the cheese is falling off the cracker for him. I think
they're not a rebuild team though. Johnny is the other half. It's like, yeah, that win is great, but the Oklahoma fans are going to forget that immediately.
And especially because they're in the SEC now, so you don't have time to rebuild in the SEC. Like, you know what I mean? Like every year you're playing top end talent. You got to get good fast, and I don't know. But let's move on.
The quarterback went to
Arnold,
Mississippi State,
Auburn.
Didn't he? Oh, Auburn, yes.
I think he went to Auburn.
What quarterback went to Mississippi State? A big-time quarterback went to Mississippi State.
No, he transferred from Florida State.
Yes. Erlenmeyer or whatever.
Yeah. But Jackson Arnold, the Oklahoma kid, he committed to.
The snake poison that Hugh Freeze is putting out there for Auburn just blows my mind. I don't know who in their mothers would go there. He throws all of his team under the bus. He throws his players under the bus.
It's crazy.
Why you would go there? There's no player development. He is truly sending out propaganda. He's probably one of the least coach that I would go and play for. I can't stand the guy. I think he's terrible.
Like I was talking about, with Oklahoma, like Auburn's in a scary territory right now because they've got rich history. They have the Cam Newton year. They've been good. They've got the kick six, but the SEC is expanding, and if teams like Vanderbilt are going to be good, and there's not room now for Auburn. You know what I mean? As when one team moves up, but one kind of has to move down in order for the SEC to kind of be balanced. So Hugh Freeze and Auburn is kind of in this dangerous territory of if they have a couple more losing seasons, it's going to be tough for them to kind of get this thing back on track.
It's going to just completely come down to him because he's recruiting really well. He's, I think, number 2 or 3 ranked in the transfer portal overall recruiting for 2025. I think he's 6th. He's recruiting really, really well. So if he does anything less than a 9-win season, I'd be very surprised if they were to not say he's a huge disappointment. But I absolutely loved some of the bowl games this year. I love the fact that Michigan won a really gritty game. Thought that was beautiful. I thought nothing made me feel better. Nothing was a bigger slice of humble pie than demanding that you be in the playoff because of who you played and then going and losing to a team that certainly shouldn't have been in the playoff. I was a big fan of South Carolina getting into the playoffs, going to losing to Illinois. You shouldn't have. You weren't that good. None of your players sat out.
Oh, yeah.
Bama was even worse.
And that's an Illinois team that was consistently great this season. They lost to good teams. No, they dropped the Minnesota game, but Minnesota trended really in the right direction towards the end of that season. But Illinois is a team, I think, Like Brett Bielema, when they got left out, they could have cried. He had a pretty similar resume to those other
Mm-hmm.
teams. He could have cried about it, but no, he just went off and won the bowl game. The Alabama game's crazy. I wanted to bring it up because like I was just thinking about Jalen Milroe and his career, and like I
Yeah.
think say like my son 30 years from now finds this season's film and asks me is Jalen Milroe good, and I would have no idea what to say to him because at sometimes he looks like the greatest quarterback that's ever played football.
He's like KJ Jefferson, dude.
Yeah, and then another other time that's like, wait, they're giving this guy the keys to the offense. It's
Yeah.
insane.
There was like a 4.5 game stretch last year where I was like, oh, Bama did it again.
Yeah,
Bama did it again. Like he is that good.
yeah,
And then if you refer back to our first podcast this year, I said I don't know why no one's talking about him for Heisman. He was the favorite for 2 weeks straight last year. I feel almost silly for that. I should,
no, I
be,
agree with you. I
walking
really
around
do.
embarrassed by that. It's wild. He performed so bad in that first half. He
Yeah,
has no respect for that team. Kalen DeBoer, I know you were a big fan of him. He's a winner. I'm not. I don't love his mentality. I don't love the fact that how quickly he let that team go away. It's a tough position Bama's in, right?
yeah,
Because part of you says, like if you and I were to take over that job, first of all, I wouldn't even take it if they offered me. But if we were, it's tough because you want to say, I'm going to do it exactly how Nick Saban did it. He did it the best, right? Like I got to emulate this. Then the other half, you would say, I can't do that because everyone's going to say I'm a Nick Saban wannabe. And then on top of that, I will never get my imprint on this team.
yeah.
But that team lost so much dignity, respect, and poise so quickly. I can only
Crazy.
imagine what's going on. That, I think, is it
It just
Malachi Starks, the safety?
yeah, and he's like a captain too, and he was like,
He's a safety. Him throwing his mouth guard, kicking the football, yelling at everyone. I was like, you should be genuinely ashamed of yourself. This is embarrassing. So it
yeah,
felt really good for, believe it or not, on the contrary of what most people were believing, I love the fact that no one sat out this year. I feel like very limited people sat out.
yeah. That was great to see because the bowl games last year I think were even worse because everyone was
Yeah.
sitting out. But I think Kalen DeBoer's in a weird situation because before the season I was like he's a winner, he can do this. But as the season progressed, it kind of shows you what type of conference the SEC is because it's almost a cult. It's almost like the SEC in the South down there. It's like
Yeah.
we like our guys. Kalen DeBoer is not an SEC guy, and they've made that. Everyone's made that known. Like in I don't I like
Well,
I
we're seeing it with another school that's very similar to them. Do you know who I'm talking about?
who.
LSU.
Oh, yes, yes, I should have guessed. Yeah, LSU, it's like you're not almost like one of us, if that makes sense. And
They were chanting to fire Brian Kelly after they lost Bryce Underwood to Michigan.
yeah, in that Vanderbilt game, that's crazy.
It's insulting. Like he's
Well,
just not an SEC guy. I think that's really well played. It's just like no matter what he can do, he's in a lose-lose. But I'm a big proponent of I wish I could I like to see from new coaches and new teams positive returns in the
yeah,
sense of Michigan had a much worse season than Alabama. There is no doubt about that. Right? Bama beat the
yeah.
SEC champ. Michigan, big win over Ohio State, but really nothing else. But I am in a much better position to say Sharon Moore's got a much better handle on Michigan than Kalen DeBoer does at Alabama.
I agree, and that would have been an insane take at the beginning of the season because everyone's like Sharon Moore. I don't like Sharon Moore, and I still don't. I'm still not sold on Sharon Moore. But man, to beat Ohio State, to get Bryce Underwood, to kind of beat Bama, he didn't right the ship, but he held things together in like what could have been a really, really bad year.
He also got the team super late. He didn't get the job until late January. At that
Yeah,
point, National Signing Day was already over. Everyone
yeah.
already knew that Jim Harbaugh was gone. And so it was a tough position to be in. I thought that with what he had, he outperformed expectations. On the flip side, what Kalen DeBoer had, he underperformed his expectations.
Going back to Brian Kelly, I think the worst thing for Brian Kelly was that Alabama win. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I think you might have said at the beginning of the season, but like I think that raised expectations so fast. And that's also a school where expectations are so high because before him, the past three coaches have all won national championships there. So that's like the standard. But him beating them was like, oh, wait, they're ready now. And then it's like,
No, you know what's even worse than that game, Johnny?
what?
Is the fact that Notre Dame's in the semifinals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
he
brutal.
single-handedly said, as he was leaving, you cannot recruit at Notre Dame well enough to compete with the big boys in the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
And now look at it. We had a Notre Dame I say we, I mean Notre Dame, my team. We had Notre Dame's quarterback throw for 90 yards to beat the SEC champ. Somehow figured out a way. And we're not going to talk about that game, but I just think it's a terrible look on Brian Kelly. And I think people are coming into fruition on that he's not the coach people thought he would. I think he's going to regress. He's going to end up at the ACC level after next year. Like you said, everyone needs to kind of balance out. The SEC is going to be chaos. The Big Ten is going to be chaos. It's gotten too big. The days of a 13-0 end of the season is going to be kind of in the past. Obviously Oregon did it this year, but in truthfulness, Oregon's regular season was not all that hard.
Yeah. They had the Ohio. I guess they had the Ohio State game. Well, they played
Ohio State and Illinois. Besides that, it really wasn't that bad. They dodged Penn State.
Well, they played. Yeah, I guess. Well, if we're not counting the Big Ten, we're not counting the Big Ten championship.
No,
if
just
you count the
regular
Big Ten
season.
championship,
I don't know. I feel like they had kind of an easier bout.
I don't know. The only reason I push
Ohio
back
State
is
was at home.
they did play 3 playoff teams. If you count Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, that's the only reason.
Boise. Okay, all right. Maybe I might rescind that statement.
Boise showed some fight against Penn State. A lot of people kind of crapped all over Boise. They shouldn't be there. They showed some fight. Like that's a solid team. They play good ball.
I hate the immediate reactions of a team that plays bad. Just like Indiana, just like Boise. It's
Oregon,
Oregon. They played so bad. They're not a good team. But in reality, if Penn State's the national champion, they only beat Boise by 2 scores. It's like, hey, they hung out with the national champion within 2 possessions. And same with Indiana. If Notre Dame goes out and beats Penn State and beats Texas or Ohio State, people are no longer going to be saying, oh, Indiana didn't belong on the field. It's like, they did. You're talking about the national champion here.
Yeah.
And, I hate people who are so quick to judge, especially in this playoffs. People are doing it. My brother actually texted me in the middle of the Arizona State game, maybe second, third quarter. I wish we could have a single good game.
Yes, that aged poorly.
Silly.
Even the Oregon game, and I guess if you want to start here recapping last week, we can start the Oregon-Ohio State game. Like, I know Oregon got their doors blown off, but at the same time, like, people saying, like, maybe they didn't deserve to be, they proved everything during the regular season. And then you get to that game, and just Ohio State is such a talented team. And at UNH, they used to talk about all the time, like, how many meetings did you sit in and talk about X plays? And, like, you can't the odds of you winning a game dramatically diminish if you let up like 2 or 3 or more X plays. And Oregon just gave Ohio State 14 points off deep passes early in that game. It's like the way Ohio State is built, they can score fast and they can get after the quarterback. So if you go down, it is incredibly hard to catch up against a team like that, especially as talented as they are. And especially because their offensive line might not be great, but they can play with a lead and they can run it when they need to with a lead. And I think that's the trap Oregon kind of fell into. And
I don't know. I don't know. I'm going back and forth on that Oregon game. Part of me says that Oregon was still in the locker room when that game was going off. And then the other half of me says that, there was a little bit of expectations, right? In the sense of they beat them. They were like, we're the number 1 team in the country. We handled them just fine last time. They lost to Michigan. They're not the same team they were. And they kind of underestimated what they could do to stop what they should do kind of thing. So they were banking on a Michigan style offense where the style offense they played against Michigan, but in reality they played the best form of Ohio State football against them, and it did damage. And to piggyback off what you were saying, I agree wholeheartedly. If you go up a touchdown and we have a suffocating defense, we stop you, and then we're up 14-0, and we can score at will, 3s or 7s. Very, very hard to catch up. Very, very hard to keep up. The only way you're going to keep up is turnovers. They're not going to make any, in that situation.
Yeah.
I thought Oregon was the number 1 seed. I thought they were a really, really good team. I thought they just got an absolutely terrible draw this year.
And they definitely got a bad draw. And we could talk about that all podcast, but I think everyone else in the plan has talked about the problems of the seeding process. But if you go back to that first meeting and where Oregon succeeded and where they didn't succeed, is they kind of got off to a similar start. Ohio State goes and scores. Oregon goes 3-0. But what happens at second possession? Oregon, Harmon, that first-round talent at D tackle for Oregon, he strip sacks Judkins. And then Oregon scores. It's a tie game. Oregon gets that crazy onside kick in the second half. Will Howard throws a pick. They kind of brought it to Ohio State, where it's like they kind of got themselves in a hole, were able through turnovers to get back in that
Yeah.
game. And
Yeah.
Ohio State is playing at a level right now, whereas if they don't turn the ball over or if they don't shoot themselves in the foot like they did against Michigan, the way they played against Michigan, we talked about it all podcast long after that game. But
Mm-hmm.
if they don't shoot themselves in the foot and they spread the ball out and they get the ball to those talented wide receivers, and then they focus on the run, they're a very hard team to beat. And they're a very hard team to beat, especially because that pass rush. Like, if you're in a slugfest, they might not be able to stop the run. But if you're up and you need to pass it, they're going to get to that quarterback, Jack Sawyer, all those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, as much as I like praising Ohio State, Johnny, let's not forget who they are, though. Right? Their captain is Will Howard, who was averaging like 2 interceptions a game the last 3 games of the year.
Yeah.
You know, he's playing outside of his skull. I just pray to goodness gracious it happens relatively soon. He's gonna make a mistake. How detrimental that mistake is up to the team, right? And I don't see a world I do want to progress here. I don't see a world in where Texas wins this game. I don't think that Texas has the offensive manpower. Sark is what Sark is. I've said it once, I've said it twice. I fall into the Texas trap every single week where I'm like, this is the Texas. They pass the eye test. They're big. They're strong. They're physical, experienced, great offensive-minded coach. And then every single week I'm underwhelmed, right? A terrible second half. He's not a second half coach. He's a first half. He's a scripted guy. I don't see Ohio State losing this game, but I also don't see a world where they blow Texas out because Texas can get turnovers. They can get interceptions. And that is just enough to debilitate Chip Kelly's offense, to debilitate some of his wide receivers. You get physical with them. If I'm Texas, I'm making Ohio State run the ball exclusively.
No, and I totally agree. And you beat Ohio State by putting pressure on Will Howard. And Oregon couldn't do that. Uegalege, Harmon, Birch, all those guys couldn't get to Will Howard. He had all the time in the world. And he's played, what, 1 billion college football games? He's 4 years at Kansas State. If you give him time, he's going to make the right throw. But if you can get to him, and that's the only thing what I do love about Texas is they're great up front. And that cornerback, Jahdae Barron, I have his name pulled up because I don't think I'm going to say it right, but Jahdae Barron, he's an NFL guy. He's going to be playing on Sundays where they're good enough defensively, and we can move on to the Texas game against Arizona State. But what scares me about this team is we saw it against Arizona State and we saw it against Texas A&M, where in the first half, Quinn Ewers in that offense is humming. Like, they look good. They move it down the field. They score. But in both those games against A&M and against Arizona State, second half, the offense just disappears. I don't know what happens, but they can't move the ball. And then at this point in the college football playoff, everyone's good, and you just can't say to your defense, "Hey, pitch us a second half shutout," because they're not going to be able to do that. And that's what I think is going to burn Texas.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the only way that Texas stands a chance on, and I'll never forget this, when the Patriots, it was 2007, the Patriots were 17-0, 18-0, 19-0, whatever it may have been. And then they lost to the Giants. And I remember my dad predicted it. I know they were like a 9-point underdog, but he said the way that the Giants can get after the quarterback and make Tom Brady so uncomfortable will influence the game.
Yeah.
And I think back on it, when you have a defensive line as dominant as Texas's, as Penn State's, when Abdul Carter is playing, Notre Dame's is underperforming without Riley Mills. But nonetheless, if you could make Will Howard uncomfortable, and he knows that, he drops back, he's got 1, 2, 2.5, he's getting hit.
Yeah.
No matter how good your wide receivers are, you're not going to be able to form. So I think that's the name of the game, getting those twist games in, getting those, isolations, those blitzes, those quarterback rushes, the spies, will do enough to handle him. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that Texas has to figure it out offensively. I think we're too far in the season to say they have to figure it out. They just have to do something consistent. Their offensive script, right? That first 10 or 15 plays seems like it works really, really well. I don't know if it's an experience thing for Steve Sark that he's just struggling in the second half. If it's a Quinn Ewers thing, you and I have talked about it. Quinn Ewers is almost as confusing as Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm going to get. Am I going to get and I hate saying it because Quinn Ewers is regarded as like a very nice individual. He seems like an awesome guy. He seems like a guy I could hang out with. So critiquing him is tough, but he is so quick to bail on the play and sprint out, to throw
Yeah.
it out, to throw it into the dirt. I just don't know what I'm going to get with him. And, I don't see a world where they drop 21 or more points.
Yeah, it's just really gonna come down to guys like Gunnar Helm and Wingo as a
Yeah.
freshman and all those guys, Golden. Like, can those guys get open on the outside against Ohio State? And Ohio State secondary's played so much football.
Yeah.
So much football. The cornerback, I'm blanking on his name, number 8. He started as a true freshman. Now he's a senior. Like, can these younger Texas guys get open? We'll see. But that's going to be a good game just because I know a lot of people are picking Ohio State by a lot, but Texas just has so much talent on that team. And so we'll see.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. I don't think that will be the best game of the week. Obviously, moving on to the next game, the game that you and I, the dreaded battle that, somehow, some way, you and I think we predicted it a couple of weeks ago where we had a feeling we were going to end up seeing each other some way, somehow. And I think I said something very rude on the lines of, I would love that matchup just to shut you up. Yeah. And I mean, no disrespect. Have you seen
No, of course not.
It started as a pick-em. Now Notre Dame is a 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
Is Andrew Carter playing?
Oh, yeah, I think he is. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter. He just keeps tweeting.
What's with the Star Wars stuff?
Well, I know you a Star Wars guy.
I know enough to where I think I would get the reference. I don't have Instagram. I just heard it through a podcast.
So, like Darth Vader, I think if you follow it, like he gets all messed up, like all the lava on him, and he has to sit in this tank, and the tank rehabilitates him. And then the movie that he's picked it from, Rogue One, he goes on and then just like goes on this rampage and just kills a bunch of dudes. So it's like him rehabbing. But I think you don't tweet that out if you're not going to play. I think that's what he means. It's like, I'm back. Like I'm just rehabbing. But this is going to be a great game. And I think originally we thought it was going to be a total first-round matchup. This is before Ohio State lost to Michigan, and it looked like Penn State and Notre Dame won a collision course in that first round. And then Michigan beats Ohio State, or Penn State gets in the Big Ten championship. They look good in that game, and now we're into, semifinals? Mm-hmm. So where do you want to start, Boise, Penn State? Because
the Boise Penn State game I thought was awesome. It was obviously a game that came right after, Ashton Jeanty did not win the Heisman.
Yeah.
People are a little bit disappointed. We never even talked about that Colorado game and how embarrassing that is for Deion, Shador, and Travis Hunter. They all three look like bums. No surprise there. I thought Colorado was going to come out with a vengeance, but I was wrong. BYU looked experienced. Deion got out coached. No accountability out of him. But, I thought Boise played really well. Ashton Jeanty didn't break out that run. Still very, very talented. I thought that Boise was just not as skilled.
Yeah, and I agree.
They couldn't overcompensate their run game with Ashton Jeanty. There was nothing covering. Penn State was just better in every facet of the game.
Yeah.
It didn't surprise me that they were going to win the game. Obviously, I think the favorite has won 8 games in a row against the spread in the playoffs. That line was very, very accurate. I thought Penn State played really well. Me, I'm a Penn State hater, but I thought they played Boise better than I expected.
Yeah, and watching that game, like I'll get into Penn State, but I got to give so much credit to Jeanty because he would have like a 3-yard run and he'd break like 6 tackles. Like that's how good Penn State's defense looked. Is they were swarming to the ball. They were missing tackles. It was still like a 3-yard gain. And what hurt, like Boise played good teams at like this season. They played Oregon, and in those games they were able to break big runs. Like they were able to get to 70-yard dagger, and that's what kept them in that Oregon game when Boise lost by 3 early in the season. But Penn State defense, and I think that's what they're going to probably try to do this weekend. Thursday. But they were like, we're going to make Madsen beat us. And he's a good quarterback. He's a gritty guy. He freaking gets out and gets after it. But they're like, we're going to make him beat us. We're not going to have Ashton Jeanty beat us. We're going to commit to the run. And I think it was super impressive because they did it with that Abdul Carter. He goes out like first drive of the second quarter. And then the craziest thing on the broadcast was Abdul Carter is probably a top 5 pick. He was a Blitnikoff finalist. They didn't even talk about it on the broadcast. Like he just gets injured. That's like the number 1 player in this game. They're like, oh, he's shaking.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was out until the 4th.
Yeah, no, he was out for 3 quarters. But that Penn State's defense swarming, and then you saw a bunch of guys in the secondary like Wheatley and all those guys, Jalen Reed really perform. And then offensively, I thought this game could have been like a 20-point game because what I like to see was Penn State just taking shots. Like Drew Aller was pushing the ball downfield and he hit on a couple, and then a couple he had guys just like wide open drop balls. Like one was in the end zone, one was in the middle of the field. And I like to see Penn State stay aggressive and then, running the ball, man. That offensive line, Nick Saban went on game day and talked about it. But Penn State's offensive line has been trending in such a good direction. Nolan Rucci came in and he's filling that tackle position really well, and they're just pounding the ball, and they wear you down with Katron Allen and Nick Singletary.
Yeah, Nick Singletary had 135 yards against Boise State. Really, really good game.
Yeah, and the other guy had 100. They both went over 1K that game.
Yeah, that's how they'll beat Notre Dame is if they can run the ball. Notre Dame does not have a great run defense. They perform well when it matters.
Well, just Riley Mills hurts so much. Like Riley Mills is so
such
good.
A big individual, and that's what scared me against Georgia. Is that the average size on the Notre Dame defensive line was 279? That's crazy.
That's small.
I was playing heavier than that.
Yeah.
And you're going against Georgia O linemen who are probably 6'5", 6'6", 340 pounds, across the board, and they were able to handle themselves well. I did see a clip the other day of Drew Allard scrambling. I think it was against SMU. He had a wide open wide receiver, couldn't run, couldn't throw, threw it right into the dirt. Makes me a little bit concerned about his presence. I think he'll be the key to the game if they win. I think he's going to need to perform better than he has. I'm a little bit concerned for Penn State in the sense of they are 0-2 in their biggest games of the year this year against their toughest teams. I would say Notre Dame is much better than SMU. Notre Dame is much better than Boise. But with that being said, I think that they need to lean heavily on the run, and they need to score on offense. I know that sounds so stupid, but
that's not what Georgia did.
Scores sevens when they hold the ball, even 2 out of every 3 times in the first half. It's going to be very, very hard for Notre Dame to keep up. Notre Dame had like 240 yards total against Georgia. They win because they get turnovers. They win because of special teams.
Yeah.
But if your offense can consistently produce, Notre Dame cannot keep up.
And that's what – and you're right. Aller in that SMU game didn't look good, but I do think he put the ball in good places against Boise. Like both those Warren touchdowns, he put it where the defender can, and then that bomb to Omari Evans is one of the most casual, like 40-yard throws I've ever seen. He just kind of steps and just freaking.
I know he can play well. I'm more looking forward to what Andy Koltnicki can do versus Al Gordon.
Hey,
Coach Gordon,
Penn State guy. Al Golden. Played tight end.
Oh, yeah, he's a tight end. Do you see that photo? It's dope.
Yeah, he caught the game-winning pass against Notre Dame.
That's sick.
Penn State, which is so sick. Yeah,
that's so sick.
Al Golden,
all the old clips because I don't think Penn State and Notre Dame played since the early '90s.
No, that's 2006. I watched it today. But the shoulder pads are crazy, dude. Yeah.
But I was watching the early '90s clips the other day, and they just such authentic football, right?
So sick.
One of the plays I saw, it was a 2-point conversion for the win. I think they won 19-18. Notre Dame did. It was at Notre Dame Stadium. The quarterback opened up. He was a righty. Opened up to his left as if he was a lefty. Flipped his hips. Screwed the defensive back out. Threw a lob to the tight end. They won. It's just such a crazy play.
They shot Rudy at that game, the 1992 one. But no, the Penn State Notre Dame matchup's 9-1, which is insane. They ended the game on a tie. But so whoever wins this game gets the lead on the series.
The advantage. With Notre Dame, I'm excited to see what he can produce as a defensive coordinator. He's very, very aggressive on that front seven. I'm curious how that, when you're so aggressive as on the front seven, it does open up holes if you do not have gap integrity. So on any kind of draw plays or late counters or G or O schemes, it can open up gaps. And when you have 2 really talented, probably NFL backs, that could happen. That could be a bad thing for Notre Dame. Granted, Georgia was not able to produce. Coach Freeman coached one of the best games I've ever seen against Georgia. The decisions he made, his team being fired up, his ability to adapt to change, I was blown away by it. With that being said, I think that Penn State and Georgia are at 2 different levels right now.
Yeah, no, I just especially, and we can go to the Notre Dame game, but especially out of the quarterback play because Gunnar Stockton, he was refusing to stay in the pocket, and that kind of screwed them. But also, and I don't know if you can explain this to me, but they showed the stats. The amount of balls Georgia has dropped this season alone is
Yeah.
insane. And that one, the Bell guy dropped one. It
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, it was a post route just right
but
across the field.
that was crazy. But what I really liked out of Notre Dame is, and you said it, they play such good complementary football, special teams. The play where they rushed the offense on the field, they got Georgia they won hard count, which like if I was ever a D line coach and a guy gets caught on the hard count, I think I'd be like, just pack it up, man. Come on. Like, come on. Come on. I know it's
As
on.
a defensive lineman, I can vouch for him.
I get it. I
That
get
is a
it.
tough position. In your head, you're thinking, I'm making this mother truck and stop.
Yeah.
I'm going to destroy this guard. He has no chance against me. I can relate. I don't give him excuses, though, because when you are doing that type of bullshit that Notre Dame did, in the back of your mind, you're thinking hard count.
Oh, yeah. The only thing is, like, in what Notre Dame succeeded on, I was scared of in the beginning because, like, great special teams team, and then you open that game with what the Bryce Young getting, or Bryce, or whatever the guy's name was,
Yeah.
getting back-to-back, roughing the kick. I was like, oh, my gosh.
That was inexcusable. That kid, I would legit be like, hey, dude, you're not coming back with us. Uber back.
But then they do the play we just talked about, and then the kick return. So that was the biggest play of that game because both teams really struggled moving the ball. Georgia obviously had the really bad fumble on the 10-yard line, which ended up being huge. And then the ETN fumbled it going in. But that kick return was such a game-changing play. And that's like Notre Dame needs to continue if they're going to move on, playing well on special team and getting turnovers, winning that turnover battle. And it's like just good complementary football.
Yeah, did it seem to you when you were watching the Notre Dame game that they were trying to force Riley Leonard into doing something he wasn't that first quarter?
Crazy. It was crazy. I don't know why
I don't know why every single thing that they do is not sprint left, sprint right, levels. You know what
let
I'm
him
saying?
run.
The tight end, the wide receiver, and the wide receiver all at different levels. And you know, when in doubt, you run it. I also don't know why they're not running any kind of run option type plays, why they're not doing any triple option style. It's like he wants to run, right? It's literally 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And yet he was sitting back, dropping back against Georgia, doing an absolutely terrible job with wide receivers who are notoriously bad at Notre Dame, right? Penn State, Notre Dame, they're legit mirror images of each other.
Crazy.
Do you remember that thing in chemistry that we used to learn about where it was like super
isomer?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's what Notre Dame and Penn State are. You know, that's why
get Tyler Warren the ball, get the tight end the ball. Yeah.
But you know, I really hope that when they get out there, that they are thinking to themselves, "Hey, Riley, we want you to throw the ball 13 times. I want you to run it 25 times. Give it to Jeremiah Love 25 times, and we're going to win this game." I think that Riley Leonard, if he runs the ball 20 times, they win the game.
Is Love playing? I know he got banged up. He didn't play in that.
Last I heard, it was up in the air. The bigger of the concern is Xavier Watts is up in the air.
Wait, he's up in the air too?
That's what I heard on some podcast today. I'm not fully certain.
Because one thing I am concerned about Notre Dame is they have a great defense. Xavier Watts, like the whole defense is great. But as the season's gone on, they've gotten banged up. They lost Benjamin Moore. Was it Morrison? He's the one of their starting corners who, before he got hurt, like I think if he played the whole season, people would be like, he's a first round guy. He's just a lockdown corner. And now, of course, we mentioned Riley Mills, just an absolute plug in the middle, run stopper. Those two injuries, I think, are huge, and those get emphasized even more if Xavier Watts doesn't play. So it's like this great defense you all sees that's slowly getting like, and it's what sucks about playing a long season is guys go down. That's just part of football.
Yeah.
But especially if Notre Dame likes getting to the quarterback, I think missing Morrison is pretty huge because he just shuts down a guy.
You know what narrative I am so freaking sick of, Johnny?
What? Tell me.
Is that everyone keeps saying, "Oh, isn't it funny that now that every team is legally allowed to pay their players, Bama and Georgia aren't as dominant?" Which just isn't the case. And I'm not saying that they did or did not pay their players. I have no idea. What I am saying is, you know why they're not as dominant? Because the transfer portal is getting every single backup out of the team. At one point, you could literally say, hold on just a second. He's on the Jets now. He's a defensive tackle, Quinnen Williams. You know, Quinnen Williams didn't start until his 4th year.
Yeah.
And then he was the 3rd overall pick. That's what Bama used to be. It was just like, give them a little bit of time and they're going to be ridiculous. Now, if Quinnen Williams doesn't play his freshman year at Bama, he's heading to Auburn. He's going to A&M. He's going to LSU.
Well,
Like,
look at Georgia, and that's what killed him in this game. Gunnar Stockton coming in, but those Georgia teams with Stetson Bennett, who is the backup, JT Daniels, he was a starting quarterback
yeah,
this year. Who was their third string? Brock Vandegrift, who started at Kentucky. They had three college starting quarterbacks on that team, and they were able to do that because well, now they're not able to do that. I mean, because of the transfer portal, those guys are going to go start somewhere else, and that's
yes,
what killed them.
and I like that idea of the transfer portal. You know me, I'm not a huge fan of the transfer portal. I like what Marcus Freeman actually said about it is we'll minor in the transfer portal, we'll certainly not major in it. And I
Yeah.
like that approach. I like the idea of growing a team and growing a program. It's such an interesting concept, and I'm so sick of everyone pretending like the Georgia and Bama bought their teams when they did. But regardless, they just don't have the backups that they used to.
No, that's
And I don't
yeah.
blame these players for going to
No
Tulane,
way.
into
No.
going to Vandy, into Georgia Tech. You know, get that playtime in while you can. You know, you can still be a really, really good player. But that the transfer portal, while it has its evil side of it, is truly a great equalizer.
100%. This has been such a fun season because of the transfer portal.
Yeah.
You see talent spread throughout the country, which has been awesome.
All right, Johnny, let me hear your picks. I want score predictions, and then
Score.
we're going score predictions. We're not going to pick the national champion. We'll save that for next week.
I do want to
Thursday night is Penn State Notre Dame, which is BS to me because Notre Dame got pushed back a day. You
Yeah.
know, after Georgia, I don't understand why that wasn't a Friday game, but I know everything's
No,
like
I have
should
no idea.
reset and whatnot. But
It's stupid. But I do want to say we're not doing any cheesecake picks of the week because there's 2 games. That is over. I'm excited.
congrats, dude.
I'm excited for my meal. This is going to be great.
No apps, no drinks, just an entree.
Cocktails, appetizers, 2 entrees, dessert, everything. But with that being
I've
said,
seen you eat, Johnny. You eat like a little bird, so I'm not that concerned.
okay. So starting Thursday night, of course, I'm going with my Penn State Nittany Lions. I think Abdul Carter looks like he's playing. I think this defense is playing really well, and I can talk about the defense all day, and I already have. But the big thing for me is this offensive line has been trending in the right direction. They're playing really good football. I think Penn State's going to be able to. I think like without Riley Mills, Penn State's going to be able to run the ball, and that opens up the play action. And I think Drew Allen is his best in the play action. I think that gets Tyler Warren open, middle of the field, and then it allows the guys on the outside to go out and make plays. So I think Penn State. And if you said score prediction,
yeah,
I'm going to say 28-17.
Wow, big game.
But that might be like more like a 21-17 and they get a touchdown late. You know what I mean? I'm not picking a double digit spread. I'm saying
I'm gonna pretend like that wasn't straight disrespect, Johnny.
I feel like that's a pretty normal football score, but whatever.
I think that's highly disrespectful. But I think the key to the game is Notre Dame's defense being able to stop the run. I'm very excited to see how they stop Tyler Warren. You can't stop him. You can only contain him. I'm not very concerned about Abdul Carter. I think he's overrated.
Awesome.
I don't see Penn State beating Notre Dame in the special teams game. I don't see Penn State stopping Notre Dame. Let me start over. I don't see them getting out. I don't see Notre Dame getting out coached by Penn State. I feel like some of the Penn State foolery is not going to work on Notre Dame. I think that we're going to get the run game better against Penn State than we will than we did against Georgia. I think it's a much closer game. I think it comes down to a game-winning field goal by Notre Dame. They just got their kicker back. He's finally healthy. He can kick a 55-yarder. It's not talked about enough is how important that is. I think that we need to lean on Riley Leonard to actually throw the ball just a little bit, get the ball to Fiazon, get him, these touches. Evan Mitchell, tight end, very talented guy. Nothing like Tyler Warren, but he is talented. I think he's 7th ranked in the tight end room for the NFL scouts. I'm going to go with Notre Dame 24, Penn State 23. I think it's a 1-point game. I think that we pull it out and we'll be at the national championship this year.
That's one thing we didn't talk about is if Notre Dame stands a chance, it's guys like Faison and Mitchell that's going to have to step up because and it's because of the kick return, it's because of the turnovers, but Riley Leonard threw for 90 yards last week, which I don't think he's going to have to break 100 if they stand a chance.
See, like that's a joke. Like we should be low 200s. Like We should be able to get
Please.
him these down and out routes, these
Yeah.
hitch and goes. Get these people off balance. Like they should be somewhat concerned with the run pass option to where you
Yeah.
can get them in space.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work, we got to be able to get him the ball and get him to run it. I think that I don't see a world where Penn State scores as many points as you think they do. I think that their only real offensive weapon besides the two running backs is Tyler Warren. Shutting down a single tight end is going to be tough, but we have very large defensive backs. If Xavier Watts plays, I think he's 6'2". That's a very big
It is.
safety,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
Kyle Hamilton like.
Oh
So I don't know. I'm very, very excited. I don't see a world where we lose to Penn State. It's the exact same feeling I had against Georgia. I just didn't. My gut intuition just screw Penn State. We are not Penn State.
yeah.
Go
We are,
Irish.
baby.
Play like a champion today. We'll see you at the winner's circle.
Okay, Net. Well, we still got another game.
Yep, that's fair.
Ohio State, Texas. I don't know what this. I think the spread's 5.5 right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Ohio State. Ohio State looks terrifying right now. I don't think, like we said, Will Howard can continue playing at this level, but I just don't trust Sark and Quinn Ewers. And I think Texas's defense is great, and I think they'll be able to hang with Ohio State in the first half. And I think they'll see what the kind of the missteps and the traps Oregon fell into, and I don't think they'll make those mistakes. And I think they'll be able to get to Will Howard. But I just don't get why Texas can't score in the second half and why they go so dull. And I don't know. I'm just gonna I think Ohio State's more talented, and I think they win 31-15. And I think
I think that's a really good score prediction, Johnny. I don't know what it is about Texas. At the middle of the year, I said Texas is him. There's nothing they can't do. They're number one team in the country. Doesn't surprise me. It's big on big. They run the ball well. They throw the ball well. It's just like kind of unexplainable. And I've been trying to think a lot lately as right, like Notre Dame put up 23 points against Georgia. In at face value, like that's pretty good, right? They didn't have that much offensive production. And I was thinking, what makes it seem like, not to backtrack on the Notre Dame game, but I just want to, have a bridge and some parallels here. What makes an offense look so dud-like? It's 3 and outs. Texas, all Texas does in the second half is 3 and outs. If you can even get a first down or maybe even 2 first downs a drive, you're saying, all right, we're so close. We are so close to putting something together. We're so close to getting there. But those 3 and outs that Texas just consistently does against really good teams in the second half just make it look so dud-like.
It's frustrating because you see them get stuffed on first down or like an incomplete on second down. Then it's like, and I think Gunnar Helm's a tremendous tight end. But it's like, hey, man, you're going to have to get 3rd and 10 for us right now, and you're going to have to get open in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And Quinn Ewers might throw you a ball where someone's going to take your head off, and you're going to have to catch it. And it's like, we just can't survive off this a whole second
It seems like they're almost too predictable sometimes.
Yeah.
Like they got to run it twice. They got to throw it once every 3rd down series, like 3-play series. And it's just like doesn't really work for them that well. They need to get out in space. They need to do these cross routes. They need to get people out of position. Something about Texas just isn't sitting right for me. I don't think that they belong. They don't belong in this round in the first place, right? That was a targeting call against Arizona State. Arizona State should have won that game.
Yeah.
I have nothing more to say on that. I'm rooting for Quinn Ewers. Like we talked about, I like Quinn Ewers. I like the 31-15 score. I'm going to adjust it a little bit less. I'm going to go 38-10. I think it's a bigger spread. Texas has done nothing but
no. I agree. No, I totally agree. It just sounds like a lot.
Oregon ended up scoring 21 points in the end.
Yeah, it's like no. I agree with the score. It just sounds when you hear 38-10, it's like oh.
I agree. This is a dangerous Ohio State team. With that being said, I just want to throw out an olive branch. I would not be surprised if it is a 13-10 type game where Ohio State does what Ohio State does, and they just laid this weird egg that's unexplainable. As unexplainable as Texas is, Ohio State's had 2 games, that were, we were asked the same questions.
And even like the Nebraska game, Ohio State got into it just like sometimes. And I think a lot of it is to do with the confidence on the offensive side of the ball. It's like if Quinn Ewers is getting a sack and this offense is losing its confidence, or if Quinn Ewers, I meant Will Howard. Or if Will Howard throws a pick early, you almost see the rest of the game. It's like a ripple effect, especially if they turn the ball over early. It's almost like you see Chip, and you saw it in the Michigan games. Like, do we trust Will? Do we trust he's going to be able to right the ship? And sometimes they don't, and they squeak out these gross games. Like Nebraska Ohio State was like 24-17.
Yeah,
They
very
ended
cool.
up doing enough, but like sometimes you do see
I
Ohio
mean,
State
they were down
offense.
10-0 against Penn State, and he
They
threw an
just
interception on his
they
own like
glitch.
17-yard line.
They,
And same thing to Michigan. Like,
the offense just glitches sometimes. It's like,
yeah,
wait, and then it's like you have to like snap and like, hey guys, we're the most talented team in the country. We should be
yeah.
going down the field easy.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think it could go either way. I think that this one goes to Ohio State. Ohio State's rolling right now. I don't see them stuttering as much as they have in the past, but who knows what could happen. It's a semifinals week. Steve Sarkisian was probably looking past Arizona State just a little bit. That was a very, very tough game. Johnny, I'll call you Thursday so we
We'll be
can talk a little
talking.
bit more. Let's
Yeah,
do a little double or nothing. You won the Cheesecake Factory bet. If Notre Dame wins, you treat me to Cold Stone. Deal?
deal. Let's do it.
All right,
Yeah.
but if they lose, I don't have to pay that. All right.
Okay, sounds good. Whatever.
I
As
think
long
that's
as I get
fair.
my
I
cheesecake.
think
Yeah.
that's fair. I think that's
Yeah,
fair.
that's fair.
All right, we'll see you, dude.
See ya.